In recent years, sports betting has become a very popular topic of debate in the news and in the media. There's a constant debate whether legalizing sports betting would cause more good or more bad effects for America as society. However, sports betting is not a topic that has only recently surfaced as a topic of debate. We can trace all the way back to the 1800s and even before, with the British Parliament still ruling over us, that America has had a constant struggle debating whether sports betting does more good or more bad, as we can watch how the laws have changed and adapted over time. In 1860, at the end of the Civil War, government blamed gambling as a problem for America's demise and economic problems, and placed a ban on all of gambling. The only exception was horse racing, which was reserved for members of the elite. 50 years later, in 1910, there was a heavily placed ban on all forms of gambling, including horse racing, and by 1911, the over 300 horse tracks that had once existed had decreased to only 28. This was eventually scrapped, and we can see where the laws changed once again once the Great Depression arrived. Sports betting was once again legalized in order to raise revenue to support the Hoover Dam project as part of the New Deal reforms occurring. As we go through the time following the legalization in 1931, we can see a lot of different milestones that occurred in the development and shaping of where sports gambling is today. In 1949, the first government-sanctioned sportsbook opened in Las Vegas, later opening the first reservation-based gambling entity in 1979. Later on, shaping even more of the current status of sports betting today was in 1996 when the first bet was placed online. As online gambling has become a very popular thing in today's age, 1996 serves as an important milestone in the path that is followed. On May 14, 2018, the Supreme Court ruled the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act unconstitutional in a 6-3 decision. This lifted the federal ban on sports gambling. As of September 2019, 11 states had legalized betting, 7 states had pending launch dates and legislation, 24 states were pending legislation, and 8 states have still taken no action. One problem that arises from illegal sports betting is things such as the underground market. In history, we've seen when the mob controlled sports gambling, which caused a lot of safety problems, economic losses for the government, and other issues. Transactions in the underground economy account for about 1/3 of the economy in developing countries and just over 10% in developed countries such as the US. These underground transactions distort the accuracy of the GDP, which makes it difficult to accurately predict effects of monetary policies. These underground economy transactions can account for billions of lost dollars in tax revenue. Studies estimate that taxing these underground economic activities, such as sports gambling, could generate $400 to $500 billion in annual revenue. This could be put towards infrastructure, funding schools, and other forms of improvement to the American economy as a whole. Legalizing sports gambling is expected to support $4 billion in direct labor income and $7 billion in indirect labor income, at a total of $11 billion in total labor income. It would also have a total employment impact of just under 217,000 jobs, with fiscal impacts totaling $8.4 billion. Current casinos in over 40 states provide over 2 million jobs and $38 billion in tax revenue. Legalizing sports gambling could contribute $14 billion to the US GDP annually right away from the start. This could also add almost $3 billion profit to casinos nationwide and could create $6 to $7.5 billion in annual wages a year. Mobile betting could add another $9 billion in revenue, an increase of over 50% total economic benefits that are possible. The mass media industry has seen a rapid decline over the recent years as a result of streaming services and sports streaming services, as well as online illegal sports streams. This is lowering viewership ratings for TV programs as well as sports leagues as a whole. However, a survey found that 45% of bettors credit gambling for making the sports more interesting. Over the past couple years, as sports gambling has become legal and has increased popularity in the United States, sports leagues and sports TV programs like ESPN has seen an increase again in viewership and more interactions from fans and viewers. The potential that legalizing sports gambling has can be supported by looking at the effects of that we have already witnessed. Companies such as Barstool and ESPN and other podcasts, radio shows, and TV programs have become popular and largely watched forms of entertainment, all covering sports gambling and different sports gambling topics. Legalizing sports betting is a no-brainer when looking at the benefits that would follow, from an increase in the economy strength, increase in fan viewership and interaction, and the potential growth of the market that can be capitalized on, all show why sports gambling should be made 100% legal.